Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. This is Dr. Makemba. We invite you to engage us once again on this platform as we continue with our Wonders of Wisdom series. Today we are yet looking at another very interesting subject matter. We are going to be talking about education and the importance of education. Let me first and foremost start off by saying there are two types of education. It's what we call mainstream formal education and informal education. Going further down, let's just define what a formal education is. Formal education is simply a process of receiving or giving systemic instruction, especially at school or a university. That is what a formal education is. On the other hand, informal education is, however, a deliberate act or a process of educating oneself through personal effort in reading and informal study. That is what self-education is all about. Now, if you contrast the two, you begin to understand that normally formal education, which entails going to pre-primary, then primary, then senior primary through secondary school, and then university and graduating, simply involve a lecturer or a teacher giving you information. You assimilate that information, you study the information, and at the end of a semester or end of the year, you are assessed based on the information that you have received, and you are given a pass mark that will then define whether you progress to the next grade or you graduate. Now, that kind of education is wonderful, but it is limited in a sense that it actually prepares you to be an employee. It teaches you to receive instruction and to carry out instruction. It does not always teach you to think outside the box. It is very nice and well structured. It also helps you how to, go about writing an academic essay, create a presentation, which is well and good. It also helps you package yourself and making yourself presentable. But as far as education goes, in terms of formal education, that's probably more or less all that you get from formal education. Now, informal education, often not so much talked about, but if you do a very close investigation, you realize that informal education is probably the most important education. Because with informal education, you are training yourself up. Oftentimes, you yourself choose the content of the information that you are studying. With informal education, you are basically building yourself up, and you are training yourself up on how to think outside the box. Why do I say so? First and foremost, if you look at all successful people, especially entrepreneurs, business personalities, most of these individuals are university dropouts. They do not have formal education. They have gone out there and they have acquired knowledge. They have studied by themselves, built themselves up, acquiring the skills that is needed to build their empires at their own pace, choosing it their own way. And that has propelled them to think outside the box. And it has made them captains of industries. Now, studies have shown that more than 90% of university or college graduates, they stop reading as soon as they graduate. That is from the formal education sector. Now, it shouldn't then be surprising that we have a lot of educated people that hold a full-time occupation, having a job somewhere. They clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning and they knock off at 5 in the afternoon. Let's say they start working at the age of 28. They work all their way through to the age of 65. They retire and go home. And that is all about what they do. So this individual, they do not offer much in terms of breakthroughs, creating products, establishing, industries that outlive them. That's what formal education does to you. It has its place, it's very good. But we need to look carefully at the importance of informal education. Because with informal education, you could still acquire a formal education and pursue informal education where you continually train yourself up. You read materials outside your mainstream career that will build your character, that will enlarge your capacity in terms of thinking, propels you to think outside the box, and prepare you to become a captain of an industry, and perhaps even having the capacity to enable you to become self-employed, able to establish an entity that will outlive you. Now, it's very important, especially on an African context, in an African context, on an African continent, we need to, invest more in informal training. After we have gone through schools and universities and we have our full-time occupation, we shouldn't just end there. We must go out there, educate ourselves, get to understand how the systems of the world operate. And when we understand how the systems of the world operate, it places us in a better position in executing our mandate on our continent, in developing ourselves as a people going forward. Because with this informal education, we will be able to create products that have not been created before, establish entities that has not been established before, create legacies that would outlive us and which would alleviate and lift our continent out of poverty. Let's use just an example. If you look at the young man that started Facebook, for instance, he dropped out of a university. But there's almost no country today that does not have access to Facebook. If you look at Bill Gates, for instance, the guy that created Microsoft, he dropped out of a university. There is almost no country that has no access. Almost every country have a use of Microsoft. The difference is these individuals have gone out there, trained themselves up, fueling their passion that made them, who they are today. They had this idea of something they wanted to do, a product they wanted to create. So they trained themselves up in gathering understanding on how they could, create this product at an international scale, making sure that this product influences the entire human race. And that is what informal education does to you. Now let's take it a bit further. You start your pre-primaries, go through primary, secondary, and you go to a university. If you look at all those curriculums, not in any school, especially here in Africa, in most part of Africa, especially in the public sectors, public schools, the schools do not teach you character. They don't teach you integrity. They don't teach you how to be loving, how to be kind. They don't teach you how to identify and grow your passion. They don't teach you how to invest. They don't teach you how to establish a stable family. They don't teach you how to be faithful. Yet these are the very things that define success. Because you might have the education, you could even go as far as acquiring a PhD. But if your family is not stable, if you are not faithful, if you are not a loving person, if you are not a kind person, your PhD is likely not going to produce much result for you or for anybody. But if you go into informal training, you acquire materials and read books that enlighten your thinking on how to establish a stable family. how to be a faithful husband or a faithful wife, how to live a clean life, conducting your business with character and integrity, staying out of corrupt activities. If you do not go out there and acquire these materials and train yourself up, you will not have access to this information. And therefore, by default, you would think to make it, you need to engage in corrupt activities now and then. You need to, take shortcuts now and then. But that is contrary to the truth. There are people that have made it, have done great things for this planet. And they've got a clean page. You can't find anywhere in their track record where they, lied to anybody, where they stole from anybody, where they hurt anybody to make it to the top. No, they just did it plainly, clean, simple. They have character, they have integrity, they are trustworthy, they are dependable. Why? Because they've trained themselves up and they are able to think outside the box. It is about time, especially as young people. With all the trying times, the economies of nations are shaking. The political systems is letting people down. Corruption is almost an order of a day in most governments, especially in Africa. It is about time we have a different conversation now about how we go about doing things, conducting ourselves, building our nations. It's about time we consider this informal training and education. It's about time we go in those bookshops, buy those books, read them. Books on family, books on business, books on investment, books on just being loving and being kind, books on just how to be an effective leader. Because without this information, guess what? History might keep repeating itself. I just want to leave you with this quote again from the Bible, as I normally does. In the book of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, the Bible says, "Study to show yourself approved to God, a workman, rightly dividing the word of truth, needing not to be ashamed." What amazes me is that verse does not say study the Bible only, it just says study. So the Bible is actually encouraging us to be studious, to be individuals that are given to study. So I challenge you to go out there, acquire as much informal training as you can. Train yourself up so that you will be able to think outside the box. This is your brother, Dr. Makemba, saying, keep studying, dealing with it.